Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 288. I am Brendan. The Ultimate Fighter 31, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, episode 5. Okay, this is going to be covering the Brad Katona versus Carlos Vera fight. Okay, as usual, we're going to break down what happened in the episode, and then we'll break down the fight round by round. And we'll talk about the results and all those things real quick before we start getting into that stuff. If you like these kinds of things, you like fight breakdowns, I do this all the time, 2 or 3 videos every single week. Subscribe to the channel so you know the next video is coming out. I'm also covering every episode of The Ultimate Fighter. It's a new thing for me. If you guys like it, I'll keep doing stuff like this. All right, let's talk about some stuff. Okay. By the way, if you're looking for just the fight breakdown itself, the timestamp's down below. You can skip to that if you'd like. But we are going to go into the episode. So, Brad Katona, obviously on Michael Chandler's team, and he fought in the UFC prior, right? Because he's the veteran in this case, but he trains at SPG, right? So it's a little bit of conflict of interest. That was like the name of the episode, whatever. It doesn't matter. And if you look at his UFC history, it's not that he fought nobodies. He fought Merab Dvalishvili and Hunter Azure and lost. A split, a decision win against Hunter Azure. I have to go back and watch that fight. I don't remember it vividly, but I do remember any fight that Merab has been in. I think he's won every single fight he's had in the UFC, minus the one bullshit stoppage at the end of a fight when the fight was already over. So losing to Merab, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has. And then Hunter Azure, it's a tough guy, and it was a closer fight, at least in his opinion. So, and then he goes on a 4-fight win streak, and now he comes back. As far as his opponent, Carlos Vera, I'm not as familiar with him. Obviously, he's on the smaller scene. So he fought in LFA back in the day, bouncing around from a bunch of different organizations. And since 2021, he's been in Fury FC. And he's on a 4-fight win streak as well, being the champ. I think he was the... No, he wasn't the champion, but it doesn't matter. He's fought, and gone 4-0 in his last 4 fights. So the setup is, if Katona wins this whole thing, he'll be the first guy who has won it twice, because he won season 27, I believe. And that's interesting. So there's 2 sides of that. One, it's a cool mile marker, right? I did something nobody else has done. That thing that I've done is the intro level getting a UFC contract, right? I mean, it is an accomplishment, but I don't know if it's an accomplishment you want to have. Like, the accomplishment itself of getting on the Ultimate Fighter is impressive. Getting the UFC contract from winning the Ultimate Fighter, impressive. But if you have to go back on the Ultimate Fighter, that means you got kicked out of the UFC. Or unless they're doing an Ultimate Fighter where they're using already, people who are already in the UFC, which they might have done before. So, anywho, if Katona loses, he's a McGregor disciple, so McGregor kind of still loses because he trains out of SPG. They start out with a fun rowing challenge. So I like to talk about these things that happen in the episode, little things that I find interesting. One of the, they try to humanize McGregor a little bit. He shows up at the house and he does a rowing challenge with his teammates and, or his team. They're not teammates. He's the coach. So he does a rowing challenge with them. They don't really focus on it that long. It's just, just the machine rower, Chandler. And then when they hop over to Team Chandler just kind of wants a coach, and Katona is treating this like it's an actual fight prep. So he's not trying to give things away in camp because he knows he might have to fight these people pretty soon. Because once all these things shake out, it's every man for himself. There's no teams in the end because if everybody from Michael Chandler's team ends up winning, and they're all going to have to fight each other to make the finals anyway. So he kind of doesn't want to give up a lot of free information to his teammates. And Chandler kind of, they focus on it in this episode. They try to make it seem like he's annoyed with it, and the rest of the team, the rest of the team is upset that Katona wants to be, say hi to SPG and his coaches, and it's his actual coaching team, and those are the guys he spends time with every single day in his real life. It's kind of, it's kind of hard to tell him not to, and I understand that it's kind of getting in the way because they're all waiting in the van for him, and I thought they played it up a little bit. It's fine. And then one thing that I don't like that Dana White says in these episodes is that these guys deserve another shot. We've been watching him, and he's been really killing it on the regional scene, and he's going to other organizations, and we think he deserves another shot. This is not how he sounds at all. It's not a Dana White impersonation. It's just a different voice. So if they are worth another shot, why not just sign them to a contract? All right. It's not mincing words necessarily. And I'm not being, I'm trying not to be an ass when breaking down everything he says, because again, it's cut for television. It's made to sound interesting. But if that's something that's constantly being said, it feels like lip service. Like, do they really deserve a contract? Because if they did, why didn't you just give them another contract? Anyway, I understand that they, if they have a show coming up and they thought had this cool idea for the show and they want McGregor to coach and blah, 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 whatever. Ratings, so they get that. Anyway, those are the things I found interesting. Let's talk about the fight. So Brad Katona taking on Carlos Vera. Brad Katona is, like I said earlier, he is the veteran. He is the guy with the UFC record. Carlos Vera is the newcomer to the UFC, or trying to be. And Carlos Vera coming from McGregor's team and Katona coming from Chandler. So feeling out at the beginning, it's about 30 seconds of feeling out, which is usual. Katona is the one who breaks the ice and he moves in. He gets a leg kick. But then Vera he starts finding his range. He starts landing some low kicks, but then Katona gets in on the clinch, gets a takedown, gets to the back. Vera fights back up, then they get back in the clinch again. It's a lot of grappling in this first round. Katona dragged him back down again. Vera tried to go for the leg and ends up on bottom. It's always a dangerous attempt, especially if you're not good at getting off your back, or the guy who is grappling on top of you is really good at maintaining top control. It's a really dangerous proposition to go for that leg lock or even go for that leg escape without the intent of just using it to get out from bottom or out from a bad position. If you go just for that leg lock, you're probably going to end up on bottom or with your back taken. It's not going to be a great position for you. So Katona gets the back again at one point, and then he loses position. Katona is on top, and he's doing a little bit of ground and pound here. But the striking from Vera, he's like striking from the back, and McGregor's yelling like, "Yeah, that's what we want. That's great." Blah blah blah. But they're just slaps. It's not doing anything. They're not getting any closer to finishing the fight. So Vera spent the whole round on his back. Essentially, he might have landed some punches on top when he had position for a little bit. But it was Katona's round. I would score that a 10-9 round. Second round here, Vera landed a cool switch kick to the body and a spinning kick to the same spot. Katona landed two lunging jabs, which he used to get back into the takedown again. Katona gets the back a little bit better this time, actually goes for a rear naked choke, had a good choke in there for a second. But Vera slips out. He gets on top, isn't really able to control it, isn't able to get a ton of damage. And then Katona gets back up, lands a hook to the body. Katona gets a beautiful single again. And gets a takedown again. Vera's flailing around on bottom, trying to strike, but he needs to get up. He can't stay on his back. There's only 2 rounds. And then, Vera's on his back way too much on this round again. McGregor screaming for the third round. Come on, give him the third round. And it's just not. That's not how this works. I'll get into that in just a second. But I clearly thought it was both rounds for Katona. That's how the judges saw it as well. McGregor's talking to Michael and saying, world title fight, there's 5 rounds. He asked Michael, have you ever had any of those? And then Chandler's like, yeah, plenty of them. He was the Bellator champion. He's fought for the interim title. Actually, I think he fought for the legitimate title in the UFC. I don't remember. My memory's a little fuzzy when it comes to that exact thing. But Dana White says it's unfortunate that they didn't go to the third round. Why? Why is it unfortunate? Did you want more of this? In the same sentence, in the same phrase? Good grief! In the same interview, he's talking about how this wasn't the most interesting fight, and there wasn't a lot going on, and neither fighter showed the instinct to get the finish. But it's unfortunate there wasn't a third round. Why? Why? You just said it was boring. You want another round of it? I know what he means, but the way he's saying it sounds kind of ridiculous when I break it down. And then at the end of it, McGregor's saying, like, these are unfinished fights and they need to fight the third rounds. They need to fight 3 rounds. Dude, that's not the rules. Okay? Is that something that could have been negotiated? I have no idea. Was that on the table? I have no idea. But this isn't something you discuss midway through the season because you're 0-5 as a coach and your fighters can't get it done in 2 rounds. Do you see what I mean? Like, you can't. It's not that I totally disagree with his sentiment, saying I don't feel that these fighters have enough time in there to kind of feel it out. But you guys, this is an agreed upon rule set. 2 rounds. You have 2 rounds to get work done. If not enough work has been done to decipher between the rounds, so like the first round and the second round, they split them. Now we need a 3rd round. But if the same guy wins the first 2 rounds, you don't get a 3rd round just because you want one or just because you feel like the guy who won is tired. That's not how this works, man. Because they know there's only 2 rounds, a lot of fighters will go harder in those first 2 rounds, knowing that if they do a good enough job and they keep control long enough, they don't have to fight a 3rd round. But if you introduce the 3rd round, I guarantee you're going to get slower fights, even though some of these have been a little slow. But I guarantee you what you're going to have is a slower, longer, more arduous feeling out process for a lot of the fights, because that first round is going to be a feeler round because they can give up a round. But they know there's only 2 rounds. I can't give up a round. I got to go now. And the people who take advantage of that are more successful. I mean, it's unfortunate for Carlos Vera that he's the guy who, was the more striking heavy guy, and maybe with a 3rd round adjustment, he could come out there and go for the finish and go for broke. But guess what? That's an adjustment he should have made in the 2nd round because he lost the 1st round anyway. Everybody knows, everybody's fighting under the same system, the same rule set, and the understanding that this is how it works. If you don't like it, then either don't sign up for it or discuss ahead of time. I don't know if it's negotiable. This is how it's always been, so I'm guessing there's some rule set or something to do with tournaments and how many minutes a fighter can fight within a certain amount of time due to the commission. That would be my guess. Anyway, overall, this episode, I would say this was less interesting than the last couple episodes, just because the backstories didn't really, they didn't do anything for me, and the training wasn't as in depth. It was, they focused on a little bit more drama and some film. They showed a little bit of training, but again, like I say in every one of these, if it was a 40-minute video or episode of them showing training and then going to the fight, I'd be okay with that. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm always down for more training. So if you like this episode, let me know. Let me know what you guys thought. Did you think the fight should have gone to the 3rd round? I don't, but explain to me why you thought it should go to the 3rd round using the rule set and the conditions that apply, right? Don't just say you wanted it to go a 3rd round because you think one guy could have won in that 3rd round. Right? You have to use the reasoning. So tell me why you thought Vera won one of those rounds. Maybe you thought he won both those rounds. It's possible that people could think that. I don't, but maybe you do. Let me know in the comments below. So that is it for this episode. Join me later in the week. We're going to break down the UFC, the UFC fights this weekend. Go back if you want to see the breakdowns of the previous episodes. I've got all those up, 1, 2, 3, 4. So check those out. Subscribe to the channel so the next video's coming out. 2 or 3 videos every single week breaking down fights. Love y'all. Have a great week.